Things outside looking in are looking pretty dire, I can't lie. July 6, Xbox CEO Ashish Sharma announces company-wide layoffs in the thousands. And for some reason, I can't shake the idea that this is a good thing. Obviously, not a good thing for, the people who actually lost their jobs. There's absolutely no arguing that. And I do legitimately hope they all end up back on their feet. In fact, I'm sure they will. They're all incredibly talented. They didn't get there by luck. But as someone who has watched Xbox decline over the past 13 years, like all of you, it's refreshing to see someone come in and target the things that aren't working. But to defend 2026 Xbox properly, we need to know how we got here. And our story starts in what is possibly the darkest year in Xbox history. Coming fresh off one of the single greatest runs in the history of the medium, Microsoft's little console that could, the Xbox 360, had finally proven itself to be a real contender in the console market. And look, it never quite managed to outsell the PS3. Coming in against Sony's already established brand name, it was almost impossible. But by the end of the 7th generation, Xbox had built a reputation. Xbox Live was seen as a much more reliable service than Sony's PSN. If much more reliable is code for not giving away your information to any hacker with a laptop and a can-do attitude. And on the other side of things, the hardcore gaming market had absolutely fallen in love with the Xbox 360. It was seen as the console of choice due to its better online, better controller, and performance in LAN environments. But that would all come to a screeching halt May 21st, 2013, with the announcement of the Xbox One. Oh yeah, and this is Don Mattrick. No one ever had a bad word to say about him, and he lived happily ever after. Okay, no, he alone basically shot Xbox as a brand right in the kneecaps. Don here felt that going into the 8th generation, it was time for Xbox to lead the charge. He brought in tons of radical new ideas and, yeah, it didn't pan out well. First up on the chopping block was the console gaming industry's boogeyman, always on DRM, which is funnily enough still the biggest topic of conversation in the industry today. Upon announcing the Xbox One, Don Mattrick would go on to clarify that the Xbox One would require a daily check-in every 24 hours with a connection to the internet for the games on the device to be playable. That isn't just digital games, that's disc-based too. The media burned them at the stake. And when Sony got involved, infamously poking fun with a video showing them handing a game box to each other, and I'm sure Sony will never ever go and do something to completely invalidate this. Right? This always online requirement would soon be completely rolled back, but not before our friend Don could get another jab in at his own company's reputation. When asked what customers without an internet connection were expected to do, he famously answered,
"Fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360. That's your message if you don't, like it?
If you have zero access to the internet.
Just brilliant. Just they made this guy in a PR lab or something. If that wasn't enough for you, Xbox's entire media strategy centered around all-in-one TV, multimedia buzzwords being shoved down your
TV. Sports. For Call of Duty, TV. Anybody?
With very little emphasis on any games. Oh, and a forcibly bundled Kinect 2.0. which increased the base price of the console by $100 while sporting a less powerful machine than its direct competitor, the PS4. In one fell swoop, it had alienated the fans who loved Xbox Live for its online capabilities by turning the always online into a negative, and 2, completely lost the hardcore audience that it had built over the life cycle of the Xbox 360 by releasing a weaker machine than the PS4 and constantly pushing multimedia integrations like TV. Just by the way, this is a world that is already starting to adopt streaming, so why are we trying to force TV into our brand new gaming box? It's not hard to see how disastrous that was. I mean, Don Mattrick would be out of the job before the end of July, all thanks to the disastrous announcement of the Xbox One. But who's replacing him? Enter Phil Spencer. We like Phil. He's been around for like 20 years at this point. He's got a real like just like us kind of attitude, you know? But unfortunately for Phil, he was basically handed a rotting dead carcass and asked to make carne asada. The damage was done, but try as they might, Xbox could never really regain what they lost that day. The PlayStation 4 would go on to outsell the Xbox One by over 50 million units. And the reputation Xbox built over the course of the Xbox 360 was completely trashed. With Xbox backed into a corner and facing being completely shut out by the gaming industry, Phil gambled huge on Xbox Game Pass. Launching June 1st of 2017 and available for not only Xbox but PC as well. It was basically sold as Netflix but for video games. A recurring monthly subscription and access to hundreds of games from indie to AAA, old to brand new, 360 to Xbox One, you name it. There were no joke games coming to this. Every year's brand new Call of Duty would appear on the Game Pass at the day of launch. And on top of that, when Xbox would go on to acquire big studios like Bethesda, their entire mainstream catalog would be brought over to the Game Pass. The hope, the value to the customer would be so overwhelmingly obvious that you wouldn't be able to deny signing up, and that those subscription costs would help subsidize the cost of buying up these studios in the first place. But the reality, people wondered why they would pay $20 a month for hundreds of games they don't even plan on playing, while also having to migrate away from their already established libraries on platforms like Steam. It turned out to be a much harder sell than it was on paper. Xbox would eventually meet with the reality of running a subscription service, which is that low price that you sold at the beginning will have to go up. Fans rejected a price rise massively, with a reported millions of cancellations, causing Xbox to backtrack, dropping the price to a price only slightly higher than the original, but nixing some of the biggest features. New Call of Duty games will now be coming to the platform a year after release, aka basically when they're completely irrelevant. It's now 2025, and after years of struggling through Game Pass and declining sales, Phil would leave the company. And while well-intentioned, unlike someone, Phil's efforts to return Xbox to the powerhouse that they once were in this industry proved expensive. In lieu of this, Asha Sharma was brought in as CEO of Xbox, and has since spent her first few months to a year corralling Xbox into a united force. For 13 years, Xbox has been flailing, betting big on huge risks, and failing to actually produce what fans want from them. Reports stating now that studios like Bethesda are being put on track to make the games that their fans want to see. Games like Fallout 5, games like The Elder Scrolls 6. And I mean, it's kind of insane because Xbox has owned Bethesda for 6 years. And you're telling me that now they're like, okay, maybe you should start working on some things people actually want to play and not Starfield. Yeah, that's crazy. Why am I being mean to Starfield? I didn't play it. Oh, that's probably why. It feels morbid to look at the news around these companies and celebrate it. A lot of people's lives have been directly affected by Xbox's mismanagement. But in saying that, Xbox has lacked any real direction for years, and communication to us, the consumer, has been almost non-existent. And that's all seemed to have changed in the last few months. And if the last few months has taught us anything, is that we need more players in this industry. We can't afford to give it all up to one company. Our power in this industry is at its highest when the top of the industry is competing with itself. And the more that Sony seems to run away from Xbox, the more that Sony seems to think it can get away with doing whatever it wants. I'm not trying to paint billion-dollar company Microsoft as a hero. In no way am I trying to do that. But competition is necessary. Not ideal, necessary. Because if there's no competition, then we lose. And Sony will have console gamers paying by the minute. Okay, well that's it for my, vague defense, I guess, of Xbox. I guess I'm less defending them and more just being like, guys, we need them. We need someone else that isn't Sony around, because Nintendo doesn't count. They're doing whatever they want. Then they're not even in direct competition. They're a whole different thing. But Sony and Xbox need to exist together and keep themselves accountable, because there's no entering that space now. There's no place for another gaming console. You either buy an Xbox, a PlayStation, or you grow up and you buy a PC. And with the way all the trends are going, it's not looking good for us.